Welcome to the Take the North podcast. I'm David Haugh from the Mully and Haugh Show. Dan Wiederer from the Chicago Tribune out at Halas Hall. And we have reached the point of the preseason where in Chicago it's about managing expectations because they skyrocketed after Saturday. Dan, I know you did a post-game pod with Adam and talked about what you saw against the Bengals. We're still talking about what everyone saw against the Bengals, glimpses of greatness. I just wonder, back at practice today, as we tape this on Monday, how did the Bears process what happened Saturday against the Bengals?
Look, I think the Bears have been healthily grounded in every step of the Caleb Williams process to this point, and they understand that Saturday's game opened with three and outs, 9 plays that didn't produce a first down. It was well into the second quarter before the Bears crossed midfield for the first time, and so there's obvious room for growth. That said, when you see the flashes of special, when you see the potential star power folded into the performance that Caleb Williams had with the first team offense, you can't ignore it, and you can't resist the temptation of thinking what that could potentially forecast for this city, for this organization, for this quarterback. And so it is a little bit of a juggling act. I'm sure you had to deal with it on the morning show on 670 The Score on Mully and Haugh, of just trying to provide context to all of it and provide balance to all of it and provide nuance to all of it. The thing that I'm most encouraged by is Caleb Williams, even in the post game on Saturday afternoon, was not floating like a helium balloon. He was grounded. He was understanding of what he had done on the field, good, bad, ugly, everything in between. And he was ready to continue improving. And that, I think, is maybe the best part of this thing. And Matt Eberflus said that the disposition on Saturday is what encouraged him as much as anything.
I think that, without overstating one, podium appearance, that is what I felt like was as impressive as anything we saw on the field. Because one has to be in concert with the other. And so many times in Chicago, we have seen examples where, what is lacking sometimes, and I want to be fair here to the people who, all the predecessors at quarterback, but there's a mental toughness or a presence that was always lacking, maybe presence of mind. And I think in Caleb Williams' case on Saturday, after a professional outing, as Matt Eberflus termed it, the explanation of what happened was as impressive as the execution. And that's always going to be encouraging for a rookie quarterback, especially. So you come out of Saturday and you don't worry so much about the guy at the center creating all of the hoopla, getting carried away with it. And I think that's one of the best things about this preseason, is that a month into it, he has probably lived up to the hype so far, and yet has shown the capacity to not let it sweep him away.
It's really impressive for a kid at this stage of his NFL career to be as grounded and steady as he is, with everything that's being thrown at him. That's everything from the playbook to the corrections to the volume of off the field interactions that he's having to have, as what is going to be one of the faces of the league very, very soon. And so Caleb's handling this really well. I did have a chance, David, to go back Monday morning and go through Caleb's 5 series on Saturday. And you see a little bit of everything in there. You see an early start, the first 3 plays of the game, the first 3 and out, all in my grade book went down as minuses, because it was just a couple inaccurate throws, a little bit of lack of pocket presence, and an intentional grounding penalty. And you go, that's life with a rookie quarterback. There's going to be stretches, 1 series, 2 series, 3 series, where it's a little bit bumpy and rocky. And I think you were probably like me at Soldier Field on Saturday at the end of the first quarter going, if the Bears decide to pull the plug on this now and just not tempt fate with the risk of injury here, then we're walking out of Soldier Field feeling like, oh, God, that wasn't really a great encore to what happened in Buffalo. Well, then we got the 4th and the 5th series, and you got momentum, and you got some of those flashes, and you got Soldier Field's first taste of playmaking magic from the rookie quarterback, and you go, yeah, this is what everybody signed up for, and this is why these dice were worth rolling, no matter where they end up and what the net dividends are. These 100% was the bet the Bears had to make when they were forced into making a bet last winter.
And I don't know, maybe you found out the genesis of that decision, but I give Eberflus and Shane Waldron credit for maybe deviating from the plan. Maybe they wanted 3 or 4 series and that was it. Maybe there was a temptation after 9 kind of lousy plays to pull the plug and not tempt fate, but sticking with the first offense, sticking with Caleb Williams back on the field. Maybe he talked his way back onto the field. I'm not sure, but it was a good decision. And it showed a flexibility in Matt Eberflus that maybe deviated from the plan. Not sure he would have done that in the first two preseasons, but doing that in this case, it paid off.
There's no question, and I think it was just trying to get him a volume of work, an opportunity to see some different things. They were able to find a little bit of playmaking magic there. They get the fourth drive started with that end around to Rome Odunze, and then they called the play action deep shot to Tyler Scott, which I'm writing about extensively at ChicagoTribune.com for Tuesday morning, because it was an example of a play that not only awakened the Bears offense, but then to hear Caleb Williams talk about it after the game and the detail of what he saw from the cornerback in the slot that sat flat-footed and allowed Tyler Scott to get deep, what he saw from the safety who came down on the over route to Rome Odunze, which opened up the window to take that shot, what he saw from the backside corner who was trying to overlap on the play but had no chance to get there if Tyler Scott ran his route right. And you had this glimpse into a quarterback who not only could tell you about the play he made, but who could tell you about all the factors and dynamics within that play in great detail, which to me was just the latest example where I think we're really going to become enamored with all of our interactions with Caleb, because he's engaged and he's willing to take you places that feel, quite frankly, David, as I wrote today, Rodgers-esque in his ability to dissect plays and describe them in detail that tells you that there's a mastery of what he's doing.
And that's the comparison that he invoked on Saturday, and he apologized for doing so, but he does have a lot of the similarities of an early Aaron Rodgers. And I think the one thing, again, not to make too much, this is the honeymoon phase, right? And for everyone, the media, the fans, the quarterback, the coaches, but when you have somebody as supremely gifted as Caleb Williams is, and he can talk in a way that helps you understand what's going through his mind as things unfold, and he doesn't talk down to you as a fan, as a reporter, he's talking to you and he's explaining himself. That's refreshing. And I don't know how long that will last, but I hope that you said that we'll become enamored with that. I think that's a good word to use, because it just is enjoyable when you can talk football with somebody, or when he's giving you an idea what's going through his mind and why he did what he did, even when he's making a mistake, even when in his admission he held on to the ball too long, which created a sack situation. Right. So that to me is what you look forward to. That's what makes this the access that we're able to get to this quarterback so much fun.
Guess who else is enjoying it? His teammates. And I had a chance to talk to Tyler Scott on Monday in the midway at Hallis Hall, and we started out talking simply about the deep ball that I just talked about, the play action shot. But then Tyler Scott said that you know, after the 45-yard off script completion to Rome Odunze that set Soldier Field on fire, the gift that was that play, Rome Odunze came back to the huddle, and Caleb Williams was immediately correcting him on what he should have done on his initial route that would have made the initial completion possible before the 45-yard magic act occurred. And Tyler Scott said, you know, he's kind of looking up at the play clock going, it looked like we got 30 seconds to get the next play call off, but there's a feel like Caleb, his mind works at that speed, and it processes fast enough where he can make a correction, then call the next play and get them ready to roll. And the other thing that he said, sort of echoing some sentiments that Tyreek Hill tweeted out on Saturday, is that Tyler Scott said, look, we were in Kansas City last September. I watched Patrick Mahomes. I watched him be in control of a football game where things looked like they were in slow motion, and it looked like he was sort of the puppet master controlling the entire game. Well, there's glimpses of that right now with Caleb. And look, like, you do want to guard against hyperbole. You do want to guard against proclaiming this guy a can't miss superstar. But you also see so many of the prerequisites for playing this position at a high level present. And so now it's about coaching, it's about development, it's about growth, it's about handling pressure, it's about handling the regular season and games that have bigger stakes than these two that we've watched in August, and figuring out if you can continue to grow at a rate that puts your team in contention for championships as soon as possible.
It's been impressive to see the outward reaction nationally around the league. I think the attention is starting to come in waves. I would recommend people go check out Albert Breer's story on SI.com. We'll talk about that later in the week. A really good dive into Caleb Williams' psyche and just how he knows himself, and that allows him to be the kind of person that is as engaging as he has been. And they talk about using the sports psychologist and talking to him and how to how he learns and how to do things that maybe accelerates that process. So that's going to be something that we're going to study and that we're going to enjoy and we're going to dissect all year long.
Yeah, you've used the word enjoy twice, and I think it's really good because it is enjoyable. Like
It
it is
is. It
enjoyable
is.
right now, and I think everyone's going to enjoy going along for this ride, no matter where it ends up. It's going to be an enjoyable ride. And look, like I know you're looking down at your calendar the way that I look down at my calendar. Week 1 is close, and so now we can start to feel after this 4.5 week grind of training camp, like okay, now we're getting to the real stuff here soon, and there's a lot to be looking forward to because it should be a fun season again, regardless of where it ends up. And as long as you are setting your expectations with a realistic tether to it, everything should be a pretty cool experience in 2024.
Those are big picture things that we're looking forward to. I want to look at a couple of the details out of Saturday to see what you were able to unearth or talk to people about. I really like the way, again, small sample size. We're talking about 43 snaps or so for Caleb Williams, the starting offense, not much more than that. But I really like a couple things that seem to be indicative of the way Shane Waldron will be calling plays or running this offense. I love the moving pocket.
Sure.
I'm a huge fan of the bootleg, naked or otherwise. I like the way that they're trying to incorporate the tight end early, maybe to get him some safe passes. They seem to be favoring that. I know we're not seeing Keenan Allen at full speed. I know we're not going to see DJ Moore necessarily at full speed, but I like the way he's moving the pocket, and maybe you can use that as a weapon if your offensive line is not great at protecting. Also, I think the X factor, the rookie that is maybe slightly overlooked because of all the attention paid Caleb Williams, but Rome Odunze looks like a star in his own right. And I think that's a guy that in 2 touches on Saturday made you say, wow.
Okay, so I'll take the first one first. And I became sort of a subscriber to the Shanahan style of offense early upon entering House Hall back in 2013. And the 2 people that kind of sold me on this were Rich Campbell, who was in Washington with Mike Shanahan and talked about all of the nuances to this offense that can make it quarterback friendly, including what you just talked about, moving pockets and bootlegs and rollouts and things that can make life easy on a quarterback where the reads are really pretty straightforward. And you've just got to react to what you're seeing and process quickly and make plays. You're going to see that with Caleb Williams. That's really encouraging. The other person in 2013 that talked about the Mike Shanahan offense being something that he loved was Jay Cutler. You remember Jay talking about the success that he had in that offense as a young quarterback and understanding the quarterback friendly nature of it. Sign up for it. This should be an easy way to do it. As it relates to Rome Odunze, one of the most special plays of Saturday's game was a mistake by Rome Odunze. It's the play that Caleb Williams made, rolling out to his right, baiting a linebacker who was charging, waiting the last possible second when he got to the sideline and ripping a fastball into the end zone to Rome Odunze, where if the back end zone had been painted properly, maybe he keeps both feet in and it's a touchdown, and we're talking about that instead of Caleb Williams' 7-yard touchdown scramble. That play was eye-opening in person. It was jaw-dropping on review. And once Caleb and Rome get on the same page with little details of things like that, you're going to see stuff like that weekly, I would think. And so just get ready, because that could have been a moment Saturday. It wasn't. It still kind of was, but it could have been a big time moment at Soldier Field.
I want to get back to that moment in a moment. But I also think it's worth reminding people, because it's easy to forget in all of the hoopla over Caleb, that there were people who in the draft thought Rome Odunze was comparable or even had a similar grade to Marvin Harrison Jr. and to Malik Neighbors. And we're talking about 3 wide receivers going in the top 10.
Yep.
Now, you look at the recent history, there are guys like Jamar Chase. There are guys like, that have come out in as rookies that have made impact, that have similar skill sets as Rome Odunze. I don't know. I don't want to suggest we're sleeping on Rome Odunze, but I do wonder if we're ranking objectively the weaponry that the Bears have at their disposal, where he falls and how close to the top he actually is. Because when he can go up and get a pass like that 45-yarder, when he can do what he did with the reverse before that, Dan, I mean, it's easy to get excited if you're an offensive coordinator or a fan about a rookie who you have yet to see really a full glimpse of, or a full look at. You're just getting glimpses of.
Cool thing for Rome Odunze is that there is going to be next to no pressure on him to make an immediate impact.
Right.
All the pressure is going to be on Caleb.
Point.
All the pressure is going to be on DJ and Keenan to carry this offense. And you've got a rookie who seems advanced in his knowledge of the game, advanced in his ability to kind of grow at the rate the Bears need him to, who's going to just be able to go at his own pace. And I think that's going to be healthy for Rome Odunze. And over time, the goal here is for him and the quarterback to be together for as long as they can possibly be together, till death do us part, right? Like, this is a marriage now that they should be able to take advantage of. And to see those guys on the same page, really from the pre-draft process, whenever the first time it was that they got to throw together before the draft, to now, you just feel the chemistry growing, and it's really encouraging.
So I want to talk about that touchdown that wasn't. He was out of bounds. I want to ask, I poked fun a little bit this morning on Monday morning on the Mully and Haugh show. I did it probably in a way I wasn't quite sure of, but typically isn't that the space between the end line a solid white,
yes,
painted white? Why was it not painted solid white, and how much did that contribute to his confusion?
I think that they're putting down new sod there, getting it ready for the regular season, regrouping at Soldier Field after Metallica came through town, and I don't know if they just didn't have time to paint it all.
That's not excusable. That's inexcusable.
Yeah, I don't disagree with
That's
you.
inexcusable.
And like, it was a really fun conversation with Rome after the game about that play, because, like, he owned up to it. He said it was my mistake. I got to know where I am at the field, but did say, if I'm being honest, my peripheral vision saw green beneath my feet. And when you see green beneath your feet, you think you're in bounds,
Yes.
and so, like, the instincts didn't quite kick in the way they needed to. He said, look, I thought I was Tony Toe Tap there in the back of the end zone, and I was really selling how I had both feet in. And Mark Potash came up to me immediately after the game and said, I love the way that Rome sold both feet being out of bounds. Like, it was like he was so intent on, like, planting both feet where they were, they didn't realize he was out of bounds. And it just looked so silly, because he's like, had there ever been a play reviewed to make sure that both feet were out of bounds? Like, and it was clear that he made the mistake. But again, I think the field contributed to that.
He was behind the pylon, so it was kind of a strange thing to do.
It's incredibly weird.
And I have to think that if that is a solid white, like it typically is, like it should have been, we're not playing high school football here, it should have been solid, then it's a touchdown. If that happens in a regular season game and it costs the Bears points, it didn't, as it turned out. But boy, I mean, no wonder they want to get out of Soldier Field.
But go watch that play again, like 4 or 5 times, and just watch Caleb, and just watch the throw that he made, right, and the accuracy and the precision and the confidence with which he delivered it. It's special. The other two things, I'm going to throw these at you just as we kind of wrap up the Caleb part of the discussion. There was a 9-yard pass to Cole Kmet on the third drive. They ended up punting, and another 11-yarder to Simba Webster to start the final offensive drive. And they were just examples of get to your the top of your drop, see it, react, throw. And it was, I talked to Brad Biggs about this today. They're just plays that we didn't see a lot of from Justin Fields, of that, just like that feel of how fast it needs to happen, the quickness with which you need to make the decision, the quickness with which you need to deliver the ball. There's going to be little things like that, which are going to be why this quarterback is not going to struggle to reach 200 passing yards in a game, why there's going to be chain moving drives, because you've got the ability to just really feel the position the way the position needs to be felt. Shane Waldron talked a lot about that today, Monday at Hallis Hall, about the many gifts that Caleb has. And in addition to his spatial awareness, and in addition to his off-script playmaking, that ability to play quickly and the ability to process fast and make quick decisions in the NFL is going to be something that helps your launch.
That's it. The ability to process quickly is already evident. 43 snaps in NFL meaningless games in the preseason. You can already see that. Little phases him, and his brain works at a higher rate, at the rate it needs to work as an NFL quarterback. So a lot more to come to talk about as the preseason continues. A lot of time between now and the opener, September 8th against the Titans. A lot of things for the Titans to think about. Yeah. Dan, I want to ask you about the offensive line continuity. I asked Mate Eberflus after the game about Nate Davis's play, because it seemed like there was a couple plays he just looked out of sync and maybe even out of shape. He had to look at the tape. I wonder, did any of that come up on Monday? What do you think the offensive line is looking at? Is that right guard job still up for grabs?
Well, here's why the right guard job is still uncertain, because Ryan Bates is not practicing. Ryan Bates came out of practice shortly before the Buffalo trip, and we asked Matt Eberflus about that the day that it happened. He said, "No, no big deal. It was kind of a planned thing for a veteran." Well, then he didn't play in Buffalo, and then we came back the next week and he wasn't practicing. And then in the middle of last week, we said, "What's the deal with Ryan Bates?" And Matt Eberflus told us, "Oh yeah, now he's week to week." And you go, "Well, wait a second. What's going on now with the health of Ryan Bates? We spent most of August talking about the availability of Nate Davis, and now we have to ask about the availability of Ryan Bates." And so, look, like, we have not established any sort of cohesion or stability at the right guard position in August, and we've got 2.5 weeks to do so. Um, we don't, the Bears do, and so it'll be interesting to see where they go in that regard. I think you feel good about what you're seeing on the left side of the line right now with Braxton and Tevin. Coleman Shelton has proven he can be a starter up front at center. Darnell Wright is Darnell Wright. And so now it's okay. What are we doing? What are we doing at right guard, and who's going to be available for us when the curtain lifts on September 8th at Soldier Field against the Titans?
You think the Bears are going to be able to run the ball? I know DeAndre Swift didn't play. I know we even haven't even seen much of Roshan Johnson. Get a good glimpse of Khalil Herbert. Are you expecting the Bears to be a team that when they need the tough yard on 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1 that are going to be able to get it?
I don't know that they're going to need to get it on 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2. Where they're going to need to get it is on 1st and 10, because they're going to need to set the quarterback up for some advantageous situations. And I think that they've
Right.
shown enough
Good
glimpses
point.
through training camp to put themselves in position to have a strong running game. I think they like what DeAndre Swift is doing in this offense, his feel for knowing where his eyes need to be, and how he needs to get downhill and when. Um, that all really needs to be tested in the regular season, so maybe we look at the sample size of September to get a good gauge on where their running game is. But I certainly know that they're planning on relying on it, because guess what it does, David? It opens up those play action bootlegs that we talk about that seem to then open up comfort for Caleb Williams. And so that's going to be really important.
Let's talk about the defense a little bit, because I was impressed by a couple things. Number one, it's as if, and again, it is a preseason, so you don't want to overreact, but this emphasis on takeaways in year 3 of the Matt Eberflus regime, and now they're starting to produce some. They started that last year, second half of the season. It's carried over into the preseason. It is a culture. It is an emphasis, and I do think you're starting to see the results of that. I wonder, number one, if you feel like that is sustainable, or if that is, cause effect, because they talk about it so much. And in this defense, you have to focus on that. And the second big picture, I think, thing is that Matt Eberflus, the defensive signal caller, if you can't get pressure from the side opposite Montez Sweat, I wonder if, an alternate way of doing that is what we saw on Saturday, maybe by accident, maybe by design. Kyler Gordon, nickel blitz, boom, coming off the corner. You saw Josh Blackwell, boom, same thing. And I wonder if Matt Eberflus, because he's had success in doing this, disguising coverages and then coming in a way where the quarterback seems surprised, if that's the way that he plans to supplement a pass rush that needs to be complete on both sides of the ball.
Logan Woodside certainly was surprised by that one blitz by Kyler Gordon. I mean, I think he's
Yes,
still
yes,
feeling that hit. And they sent
yes.
it twice. They sent Gordon twice, and his first blitz of the day came from the other side, and he forced an incompletion. And you saw that right away. Listen, Kyler Gordon's a guy who missed more than 3 weeks of practice with a calf issue, and you're like, okay, when's he going to be back? And when he gets back, is he going to be at full strength? And he just kind of practiced last week and then got back into action for the crossover against the Bengals. And then on Saturday, you're like, is he even going to play? And then he comes out there, and you're like, okay, Kyler Gordon looks like he's ready to be a Pro Bowler, in his 3rd season. And so his ability to feel that out is going to be an absolute weapon for this defense. It is, as you said, a way to enhance your pass rush. They are intent on trying to get a pass rush the majority of time with 4 guys. They think the defense works best in that regard. But having the ability to send Gordon with the instincts and the agility and the presence that he has is going to be tremendous. He also made a tackle for loss early in that game on a little swing pass into the flat to Kwame Lassiter, where you're just like, yeah, man, like, this defense feels Kyler Gordon when Kyler Gordon's out there. And so when you talk about the takeaways being sustainable, for me, I always go back to the Lovey era. They were sustainable for most of 9 seasons. And why was that? Number one, they had playmakers, right? At all 3 levels of defense, they had playmakers. Number 2, they had trust. And when you have both those elements, when guys are trying only to do their job with the trust that the guy next to him is going to do his, it opens up the potential for those things to occur and to come in bunches as they say that they will. We'll see if it carries over, but I think there's every bit of confidence inside this building that what they started to do at the end of 2023 will be a part of their identity in 2024.
That's what it reminds me of. Obviously, it's an easy comparison, and one that a lot of Bears fans hope is apt. But when you look at the way that the Lovie Smith regime started to get those takeaways, it was in year 2 rather than 3 of his tenure. Now in year 3, halfway through last year, things started to change. But this is a deep and talented secondary. I think that Terrell Smith showed you that on Saturday with an interception. We talked about Blackwell making things happen. Kyler Gordon's a much more physical player, I'll admit, than I expected him to be in the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
We hear so much about his finesse and his athleticism, and you picture the dancer in him, but he'll hit you, and I think that's really impressive. You got Byard there, and Jalen Johnson is poised to have a great season as a lockdown corner. Where's Jaquan Brisker, and how long before he returns? Any concerns there?
I had a conversation last week with someone here in the building about how his lack of availability has gone under the radar. Really, there's too many stretches where Jaquan hasn't been able to practice and in some cases play, and so that's one of the injury updates that's on the top of the radar right now, because I'm not sure what's taken so long for him to get back. I would imagine he'll be ready for week 1. He always has been, despite a couple different preseasons where he's been banged up for various reasons. They need him back there. I know Elijah Hicks has filled in admirably. You've got Jonathan Owens who can play back there as well. Jaquan Brisker is a guy that adds edge to the defense, and you're going to want to have him back there. I do think that this defense sees the potential to go into the regular season with momentum, and you want to just try to create as much momentum as possible, because if you can get off to a fast start, all the energy that's been building in Chicago is only going to exponentially multiply, and it could be fun really quickly.
So who do you think is emerging as the defensive end most likely to contribute opposite Montez Sweat? And along those lines, what other positional battles remain, if any, as we go into Thursday night's final preseason game?
Yeah, for my Chicago Bears storylines this week at chicagotribune.com, I did a little nugget on like the 5 questions about the roster that need to be answered before next week's 53-man roster cut deadline. And there's 2 that kind of jump out to me first and foremost. The running backs room is crowded, and you have to decide whether you are comfortable keeping 4 running backs plus a fullback. Kari Blasingame is a guy that can help you on special teams. He also plays a fullback position. You've got DeAndre Swift. You have Roschon Johnson. You have Travis Homer, who's a special teams ace. And now you have to figure out if you can create a spot for Khalil Herbert, or is he fighting for a job? If Khalil Herbert is fighting for a job, what does that mean for Velus Jones, right? So between the running back position and the cornerback position, David, I think there's some tough decisions awaiting Ryan Poles, and we'll kind of see which way he leans here in the next week. Again, the initial 53-man roster, August 27th, 3 o'clock.
Couple fringe guys I wonder about. They've had in Daniel Hardy's case a very good preseason, in Velus Jones' case a very unpredictable preseason. Didn't think he'd be in the running backs mix. What do you think about those 2 players' chances of making the 53?
Slim for Velus Jones. It just feels like this is a last-ditch effort to try to keep him around, and I just don't know that he's doing enough for your offense to be able to lean into that. You got to do more than one thing when you're building a roster that's trying to be competitive on a higher level, like the Bears are doing. Daniel Hardy's had a really good preseason. He certainly earned the right to stick around. The one thing that's different now than when I first started covering the league is the practice squad is much, much bigger. There's a 17-man practice squad now. You can stash guys like Daniel Hardy there pretty easily and continue to develop them and bring them up as needed. That is good for everybody. It's good for the team. It's good for the player. It's good for the nerves on cuts weekend, because it does allow you to keep guys around that deserve a longer look, even if they don't necessarily deserve a spot on the week 1 53-man roster, which is a big deal.
Can I just add 2 more things that I really enjoyed watching on Saturday? Number 1 was Tyson Bagent with his touch passes to Dante Pettis and the improvement that he has shown. I think in year 2, I mean, the Bagency is reopened, but I do think that he looks the part, and it's remarkable still based on, where he came from, but just on how he has worked to improve. And the other thing is I thought it was so cool to see Tory Taylor punt at Soldier Field as well as he punted at Soldier Field. It was kind of a windy day. It was windier at Wrigley Field than it was at Soldier Field. I mean, it kept the home runs in. But anyway, Tory Taylor had 3 very good punts on a day that wasn't necessarily easy to navigate.
Just so you know, I did go to Wrigley Field on Sunday with my family. Only one ball produced a run in 1-0 game, a sleep fest. So don't remind me of what the wind can do to the enjoyment
Oh
of.
my God! You went to the Shota game?
I did. I was at the 1-0 shutout
Oh
loss.
boy!
Kids got Johnny's ice cream after the game. Everything was fine in Wrigleyville. But as it relates to Tyson Bagent, you'll be excited to know that I got something coming later this week on the continued development of Tyson Bagent. Really strong performance against the Bills. Pretty strong preseason overall. Pretty strong start to his second season, and it's why the Bears feel so confident and comfortable in keeping him as their number 2. Because he continues to put in the work, he continues to get the results of the work, and he continues to show a feel for the position that is undeniable. And the second touchdown pass to Pettis, a beautiful thing. I think he only had 1 incompletion all day. And when you're talking about some things we talked about earlier in this episode, the ability to get to the top of your drop and know that the ball's got to come out, Tyson's doing that really well right now. And that's not to be lost in Caleb Mania, because the odds are, and history tells us, that Tyson Bagent will be needed at some point this season.
Who starts against the Chiefs?
I don't know. I don't know what their plan is here. And so I did ask Tyson after the game. I said, do you want to get more action in, against the Chiefs? He said, I want to ask coach if I can play every snap. So he's liable to play every snap.
I love that.
I think Brett Rippon and Austin Reed would kind of, voice their opposition to that plan. But I don't know. I don't know if they feel comfortable enough just turning the entire 4th preseason game over to both Rippon and Austin Reed and going to the starting gates of the regular season with QB1 and QB2 ready to roll and fully healthy.
Has Caleb Williams been ruled out as a starter against the Chiefs?
No, just in my own head, I don't see the reward being greater than the risk at this point.
Okay.
I think you can get a lot of work done in practice here over the next few weeks. Why tempt fate? Why risk anything? The Vikings are dealing with their own season-ending injury to a drafted quarterback. That would not be good for the city of Chicago. That would not be good for the Take the North podcast. That would not be good for anybody who has employment here inside Hallis Hall. So just live to see another day and start to get ready for the Titans and let Caleb learn by watching other people play Thursday night in Kansas City.
He certainly taught us, gave us a lot to talk about on Saturday. I don't feel strongly about him playing or not playing against the Chiefs. I could understand if they wanted to get momentum, but at the same time, you make a good argument about the risk-reward calculus, which, you don't want to end up being where the Vikings are, even though J.J. McCarthy injured himself at practice. It was practice. We're talking about practice. All right. Anything else, Dan, before we wrap things up?
No, I think we covered a lot of good ground here. This is the point of the preseason where you start to get itchy for the regular season, right? And that's players, that's reporters, that's everybody alike. There's a buildup here. I think they're getting ready to turn that page. Cole Kmet commented on that late last week. I'd say the last thing I have for you is, with the Bengals in town last week, getting to hear from Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor on their experience when they were a coach quarterback duo as with Burrow as the number 1 overall pick as a rookie, and just hearing them talk about leaning into the growing pains that are inevitable and understanding that every single rep, success or failure, is an experience that you bank. And once you kind of take that as sort of the meat of this entire process, it puts you at a little bit more at ease. Really cool hearing from those two guys. I wonder what you made of that after they stopped through town last week.
I thought that was some of the most valuable stuff to hear about Caleb Williams that we have heard, because Joe Burrow did live it and has gone through it. And I also thought about that when trying to make a determination of whether or not he should play against the Chiefs. Everything that you go through as a rookie quarterback, first-time starter, is valuable to you. And I just don't know if you want to waste opportunities or squander them. Yes, the risk-reward thing is you never can square that. But I thought Joe Burrow, having gone through it, and a guy who has been through his share of injuries himself, still having, that perspective. And Zach Taylor, certainly, the Bengals are a success story. It's something the Bears can look to with for reason to feel good. Joe Burrow changed that franchise.
Joe Burrow won more playoff games on his rookie contract than the Bears have won since 1989.
Think about that. And when you consider what the Bengals were before he arrived, and they got Burrow, they got Chase. The Bears have Williams, they got Adunze. They have a lot of the similar ways, and that's why I thought to get out of this pit. The Bears have been a laughing stock of the NFL, frankly, for the last decade, much the way the Bengals were before Joe Burrow arrived. So it is an apt comparison. Okay, Joe Burrow is probably my favorite quarterback in the NFL. So I have to take that in consideration too. But what he had to say should be something the Bears fans look at here and don't just dismiss.
And by the way, Zach Taylor brought up a Matt Eberflus blitz from Joe Burrow's rookie year with the Bengals trying to mount a game-winning drive late in the game in Indianapolis, and a Matt Eberflus blitz that's stunned Joe Burrow and resulted in a lost ceiling interception that he threw, as a moment that obviously in the moment felt really painful to the Bengals, but one that you look back on and you say, okay, he learned something from what he saw there. 4-deep look, blitz comes, you feel like you've got the answer, you throw it, it gets picked off, and you go, well, I'm never going to make that mistake again. And so there's going to be those moments for Caleb Williams where the game's on the line and he throws an interception because he didn't read the defense properly. But as long as he learns from it, and you build from it and you get that growth from it, then you come back and you win 5 playoff games and everybody forgets about the rookie year interception.
No doubt.
At Lucas Oil Stadium.
No doubt. Good stuff. Okay, that wraps it up for the Take the North podcast. You can get us on your free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can watch us on 670 Scores YouTube page. We'll be back later this week with more of the same. So for Adam Sadzinski, our producer, for Dan Wiederer from Haugh, I'm David Haugh. Thank you for listening to the Take the North podcast.
Great talk. See you out there.